Let's talk about getting some quotes for your news piece. These are always really great to have because they add context and they drive the piece forward, make the piece more readable. So definitely always try to get quotes for your piece. Sometimes news outlets will actually request them. I did a lot of writing for Medscape Medical News covering conferences, and for that, they want a quote from the lead author on the study and then also an independent expert. And they paid more for those pieces because of that requirement, and it made it a better news piece, I would say. Harder to write, but better. Anyway, this is how you get quotes for your piece. So you can take them directly out of the content. So if you have a paper or a poster, you can usually find a good quote in the introduction section or the discussion section. And you want to answer such questions as why are they actually doing this study, which they should explain in the introduction section, or what is the therapeutic landscape? How does this agent add to the therapeutic landscape? And then maybe from the discussion section, you can find something, about what the researchers think of the findings, especially their relevance to clinical practice, and then what further studies are needed. They usually discuss that in the discussion section. Those are quotes, and those, of course, are easiest to get because you don't have to actually interview a real live person. You can just quote them from the paper. Then you can get questions from the author directly about their study. 9 times out of 10, they're happy to talk with you about their study. They don't need payment or anything or an honorarium. So it's much easier to get a quote from somebody that's actually worked on the study. And you can put this prompt into ChatGPT and get a list of questions. So let me do this for that study that I was talking about before. Here is the prompt. I'll put these notes into where you're watching this video as a download, so you'll be able to download. So I'm going to put this into chat, and I'm going to use that paper that we talked about in an earlier video. I'm going to put that up into chat. All right, so here's that telisotuzumab vedotin paper. We did this in the first video of this module, and so we're going to upload this. So let's say we want to try to interview Dr. Camage about this paper, and we want a good email to send that researcher. So let's do that. So I've copied and pasted that prompt that I showed you just now, and that's in the notes. So you can do that for yourself. You can see what we're trying to do here is create a nice email with some questions that will generate a quote. We've uploaded the study. So I'm going to go ahead and send that. And it's making me make a choice, which that's interesting. All right. And it doesn't really matter here. So what it's doing here is it's generating an email, and I have to choose between one or the other. So I can't really sit here and make that assessment very easily, but I'm just going to pick one of them. All right. And I'm going to copy this. Let's see. So I'm going to copy this email. And I'm just going to put that into the email. And you can see here you have the subject. And you just want to check this and make sure that you've got good questions. These look like intelligent questions that will generate a good response. Now, instead of putting 5 really specific questions like this, I might just limit it to the 3 best questions and then add in one more question, number 4, that would ask something like, do you have any other comments that you'd like to add? So make it a really general question, because he might open up this email and see these questions and think, oh my gosh, it's just a lot of work. I'm just not going to answer it right this second. I'm going to, archive it. It's better to have at most 4 questions, and one of them should be really general where they can add their comments. And make sure you put the deadline, and then you put your name. I always like to put my LinkedIn profile in case they want to check it out, and the publication that you're working for. So there we go. All right, so you copy and paste that, put it in an email, and send it off to the researcher. Another scenario is that you want to ask questions for an expert about someone else's study. And again, you have a prompt that you can access from where you're watching this video. And you can send that on to somebody that is willing to speak on the topic, so not somebody included on the list of researchers, but somebody in the field that has published. And you do want to sort of be careful who you select. You want somebody that maybe is also getting research funds from the supporter of the study, and you don't want like a direct competitor because they might give you a slanted view. And just check out the funding for the researcher that you use. And then tips for getting a response. As I've mentioned, you want to keep your email short. Nobody likes to get a big long email. Be respectful of their time. No more than about 4 questions. So pick the best 3 questions that ChatGPT gives you and then add a general one like I suggested. And then always, this is a really pro tip that took me a couple of years to learn, that always CC at least one additional person on your email. So maybe I put in addition to Ross Camage, I'll also try to CC Shun Lu. If you can find his email, hopefully you can. You just find the affiliation and do a Google search and or a PubMed search, and usually you'll be able to find the email pretty well. Or oftentimes they have the contact information right there on the paper. And then you can also put the media relations persons at the academic institution. So here is Ross Camage. He's at UC Health. Let's see exactly where is he. He is in University of Colorado. Okay, so I'm going to do this, and I'm going to go media relations contact for his institution. Media at UC Health. So I will just put that email as a CC onto the email and give it a little accountability. Definitely include a deadline. 2 to 3 days is perfect, I think, because it gives them some time, but you don't want to extend it out too far, even if you don't need the information back right away. If you're writing about someone's specific study, you'll probably get a response. If you're trying to get somebody to comment on a topic, that's harder. And I always expect to email about 3 people to get one response that I can use. One response that you want to get, email 3 people. I know it's a lot of work, but you get faster as you go along. I always like to use email, but make calling you an option. So I always put on a phone number if they want to leave a voicemail. And then I also include a Calendly link in case they want to schedule a call. But of course, it's always better and easier to get responses back in an email. But some people are old school like that. I always add in my LinkedIn profile, and then I always tell them the publication that I'm writing for. Sometimes getting a quote is hard. It's just part of it is why that we make the big bucks, right? Although news is the least paying of the modules that we're talking about, but I like it. It's fun and it's cutting edge, and I just love engaging with the researchers when they're excited about talking about their research with you. Now, what you can do as a Hail Mary when you really need to get a quote because the client's paying you to get a quote, what you can do is find the person's quote online so you can find them talking or writing in a paper, writing in an educational CME program. Often these key opinion leaders will do that kind of work. And so you can type in, let's just use Ross Camage as an example. So let's just type in Ross Camage. And then let's put CME program. Let's see if we can't find him. Yes. So here we've got Ross Camage, MD, PhD. He's talking in a podcast. So maybe he said something that's relevant to what you're writing about. For example, this is all very hypothetical. So what you would do is email them and say, is it okay that I use this quote from you and maybe rewrite it a little bit so you're not violating the copyright of this Onc Live thing here? You just, rewrite the quotes, but it has the general meaning. And then you just email them and say, can I use this quote for this piece that I'm writing? Explain the situation. Please just respond back by saying, yes, I agree. And 9 times out of 10, because it just takes them 10 seconds to reply back to your email, they say, yes, I agree. You can use that quote, and it's just like the best thing ever. Now, the only caveat of that is that you absolutely cannot use that quote unless they say, yes, I agree. And you also give the option to say, please adjust the quote as needed to just in case they want to change it in any way. And then right there, you have a quote that you can use. It's very easy for them, it's quick, but you must not use the quote unless you get that yes, I agree email back from them. Okay. That's the temptation. It's very tempting to just stick that quote in, and that will create big problems to your reputation if it's something that wasn't agreed to. All right. Obviously. So just be careful with that approach. All right, that's it. So, tips for getting the responses. And yes, it's hard. It's not hard. Once you go along, you get used to it. It's part of the pace of news writing. And it's just so great to have a couple of quotes in with your news piece. It really adds to it and it makes it your own.